Let's take a look at some of the lighting options available in Cinema 4D. Now, right now we're seeing a scene that I put together just to demonstrate how light falls on objects with different lighting options. So just a few quick simple primitives and a floor. Now right now we're able to see our objects because Cinema 4D does have a default light. And the default light is not an actual object that we get to manipulate or change. It's just coming from the editor camera's point of view, and it allows us to be able to model and set up a scene without having to worry about lighting. So if we just do a quick render, hit Shift R to do that, it gives us you know, an image that is really not very interesting. The lighting is very kind of boring. Really meant as a utilitarian purpose, not meant for lighting scenes. So we need to create a light object. And to create a light object, go to Objects, Scene, Light. Okay, that's one way to do it. Another way to create a light is just to go up here to this little icon bar and click this. So now we've got a light in our scene. It's at the very center, so it's really not lighting very much. I'm going to go ahead and move it towards me and over here to the top left of our image so that it shines down on our objects. So if you go to the General tab, or General tab on the Attributes palette, you'll notice right now we've got a few options. You can change your color, you can change your intensity, but what we're really going to talk about in this module is the type of light. So right now we've got an omni-light. An omni-light is a pinpoint in space that shines out in all directions as represented by the image on the screen here. An omni-light pretty well mimics a light bulb, and that is this sort of a single light source with rays coming out in all directions. To help illustrate sort of what the lighting is doing, I'm going to go ahead and turn on some shadows. I'm going to just turn on shadow maps and not change any of the settings. We're going to cover the settings of shadow maps and other shadow types in a different module. But right now this will just give us an idea for where the light's coming from, how it's being applied to the objects. I'm going to hit Shift R again and get a quick render. So you'll notice that the shadows are coming out in this sort of radial fashion. And that's because the rays from the light are coming from one point in space. You'll get sharp highlights, the specular light on objects. Specular highlights are going to be very nice and hard. You'll notice the light is coming from the top left, and so it's lighting this object brighter at the top, dimmer at the bottom. It gives a very good representation of and mimics light bulb real world lighting pretty well. Another type of light that we have, if you click on the Type tab here, is Spotlight. So let's go look at that. Now, a spotlight is what you would probably imagine it to be. It's very much like a spotlight on stage. So it comes out in a cone and shines in a circular pattern. Spotlights always shine on their z-axis, so the rays are coming out from a point along their z-axis in that cone. So in order to see the light lighting our scene, we're going to need to rotate this around and have it actually shine directly on our objects. So without changing any other settings, let's just do a quick render and see what we get. Okay, so we get a nice specular light, shadows are coming down, we get a hot area of the light right here, and you see fall off on the edge. So it gets really soft as it goes out towards the edge of that circular array, or circular ring around the outside. You'll notice that you can change the size of the circle, change the width of the cone basically where the light is coming from. So let's see what that does. Okay, now we've got a much wider view, or a much wider lighting, covering a bigger area. The hot points lighting up the sphere completely, lighting up the side of this cube, giving us more shadows and just, touching the edge of this cylinder. You can get some really nice dramatic lighting effects with spotlights. Something to pay attention to for the future is the center nodule too. The center node, you can move that in, and notice now I'm in front of the object with the cube, and now I'm inside it. This will come into play in the future when you start playing with fall-off settings in lights. Many of the lights do have fall-off settings that help mimic real-world lighting, where it only goes to a certain distance and starts to dissipate. So look for another module on that. Another option for lighting we have is the infinite light. Now the infinite light is very much like sunlight. It comes down from a direction. Rather than a single point in space, it comes from a single direction in space. And it doesn't make any difference where this light is along your z-axis. It will always look the same coming in that direction. So let's just do a quick render from this z-axis. Okay, so you see very harsh lighting even over the entire scene. All the way into the background. We don't get the dark shadows in the back anymore like we had before. If we change the direction of this light, all the shadows coming in a single direction. So you don't get the radial array coming out from the center of the light source like we did with the OmniLight and the Spotlight. All the shadows are going in exactly the same direction. So the next option we have is area light. The area lights are very versatile. You can create some very nice subtle lighting with area lights. You'll notice it comes in with this rectangle around it. So if I rotate it, you'll see that this is a rectangle. Okay, I'll go ahead and move this in to the view a little more so we can see the entire thing. And you can change the size of this rectangle. I'm just going to shrink it down so it fits onto the screen. The way an area light works is rather than coming from a single point in space, it uses this polygon, the rectangle, and it emits light from the entire surface of this object in all directions. And the effect when you render is that you get subtle highlights. It's more like the glow coming from a computer screen or sort of the diffused light that's coming from overhead lighting, like fluorescent lighting with the diffused panels. So something else that an area light might be good for is television sets. You can really change this. If I make this rectangle very large, you'll notice you get almost no highlight in the center. It's just a soft, subtle light. So area lights are something to play around with to get some nice effects. And these are the 4 different options we have in Cinema 4D for lighting: Omni, Spot, Infinite, and Area.